Well, there we are. I knew I could show up here eventually. Here it is, another Saturday, another January day, and I hope you're all doing well. So I just invite you right now to put on the brakes, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation because it is time once again for Coffee Breaks with Steve. Yes, good morning and welcome once again to Coffee Breaks with Steve on this Saturday, January 21st, 2023. If you are joining us live this morning, I just invite you to say hello in the chat so we know you're here. And live video has not started. Lying liars. Okay, you're in there though now. Good. I'm glad to see that, Shalane. Everybody drink. And yes, we are here. It was, I don't know, today is one of those days when I think, technicalities are likely to be part of our conversation today because it was just a few things have already been interesting in the process, and we shall see how it goes. But I'm glad you're here. And I started to say, if you are tuning in live right now on this Saturday, January 21st, 2023, do take part in the conversation. Say hello in the chat so we know you're here. And when we get into our conversation, make sure that you are part of that conversation because that's what this is. It's a conversation. It's about all of us being on here. And see that Jerry Thompson's here, Rick Venturi, Shalane is here, Kathy Garlick is here. And if you do end up tuning in later and you're watching this in recorded mode on Facebook or YouTube, you can also take part in the chat and put your comments in, and that becomes part of the conversation as well. So, yeah, I'm glad you're here. And what else? What's going on this week? Let's talk about some of the special days going on. How's your week been, first of all? Been relatively straightforward here. I had a doctor's appointment a couple of days ago. I'll talk about that, but I think that was about the only really unusual or non-typical thing that happened in my week. But yeah, there's always interesting stuff. What's been going on in your week? We're going to talk about some special days that are coming up this week because we always got special days that we want to refer to. Today, January 21st, it's National Hugging Day. Are you a hugger? Not everybody likes to hug. Some people are really uncomfortable with the idea of hugging. Other people are like natural huggers. And it's always interesting when you encounter someone that you're not necessarily familiar with and they're a hugger and you're not, or vice versa. And have you ever been in one of those situations, if you're a hugger, you ever been in one of those situations where you meet somebody and you just kind of naturally go in for the hug and they pull back, they just recoil? Or flip side of that, you're the person who's not really into hugging and somebody just kind of comes at you. It can be a little bit awkward. But today is National Hugging Day, and there are the medical experts, psychologists, and others talk about the benefits of hugging. That it's something that goes all the way back. It's a very primal thing, goes all the way back to infancy, and that we are actually it releases good hormones. It can affect our blood pressure. It can affect mood, obviously, but hugging can be a very, very positive thing. Are you a hugger? It's also today Squirrel Appreciation Day. And some people love squirrels. I love to watch squirrels. For me, they have never, in the situations where we've had squirrels in our yard or we've had squirrels in our area, I have not ever had a situation where the squirrels are a nuisance or they're damaging. Some people don't like the fact that they get into the bird feeders. Some people say that they destroy things. They chew on patio furniture, actually even chew on houses, and they can be destructive. I've never had an issue with squirrels personally, and actually enjoy watching them running around on trees and chasing each other on the ground and burying their nuts and other things that they gather. So today, one way or the other, if you're so inclined, it's a day to appreciate squirrels. Do so if that's your thing, but it's today. Then tomorrow, January 22nd, is the beginning of the Chinese New Year. And even on this graphic, it says Chinese New Year 2023 is the year of the rabbit. And on the Chinese calendar, it's actually year 4127, 4127. But this is the year of the rabbit. And and the celebration actually goes on, I think, for about a week in the Chinese New Year, but probably in many areas, maybe around where you live, depending on how metropolitan and populous your area is. There may be parades, there may be cultural events going on. Is that one of the things that you like to participate in? Some people look forward to the Chinese New Year and get out to participate in the various activities. It may be part of your culture personally, or you may just enjoy doing it. And the asterisk is there because not always on January 22nd. I think it's based on the Lunar New Year, and which I think began yesterday. So that's why that is there. Then the 23rd, National Pie Day, not to be confused with National Pie Day, P-I, which is March 14th, 314. This is National Pie Day of the pies that you actually eat. So do you have a favorite pie? And, doesn't mean you can't bake or enjoy pie other days of the week, but that's kind of where we're at. And let's see, what else do we have coming up here? Switching the slide. The 26th, kind of skipping ahead through the week to Thursday, is Australia Day. Now, my understanding is Australia Day is not necessary. I don't know what prompts the date. You might be able to do some research and find that out. As I was looking, it just indicated to me it's a national day, national holiday celebrating Australian history and culture. I don't know if it's their equivalent to our July 4th Independence Day. Australia is still part of the United Kingdom. They're still part of, bow to the British monarch type of thing. So I'm not sure if they would really recognize independence per se, even though they do have their own president or prime minister and parliament and that type of thing. So yeah, you can see how prepared I was to talk about Australia Day. If you are Australian or you know about Australia, feel free to fill in the blanks in the chat so that you fix what I don't know. The 27th, January 27th, which is Friday, is National Chocolate Cake Day. Another one of those days. I love that we can celebrate this, not feeling restricted in any way to one day a year for chocolate cake. But, if there's a day that we can make it a celebration, let's do it. All right. And then I wanted to mention a couple of birthdays this week. David Sparks has a birthday. Tomorrow is David's birthday. So happy birthday to David. And Melinda Core has a birthday coming up on Tuesday the 24th? Tuesday's the 24th. The 24th is Melinda's birthday. So happy birthday to Melinda. And if you do have a special day this week, and I don't have it on my calendar, put it in the chat here if you got a birthday or an anniversary or a member of your family celebrating and you want us to celebrate with them. Put it in the chat right now, and we can definitely acknowledge and mention that. Do you have a special day coming up in the last week or so of January or in the month of February? You can let me know by emailing me at cbwsteve@comcast.net, and I'll get that email. And we'll make sure that we include you or your special person in that particular week's episode, that upcoming episode, and make them a part of the celebration as well. All right. I think that's it on the special days. I'm kind of trying to stall a little bit because we have a guest today, but he's had some technical difficulties getting connected here. Sometimes when we're doing coast to coast or other things that keep us a little distance out, it's a little bit tough to get connected or to stay connected. And so we're going to just give a little bit of time. We're just going to chat a little bit today. I have learned over the few years that I've been doing coffee breaks that we don't stress out when guests can't get quite on. It's all technology. And what are you going to do? But I do have some things I want to talk about. It's interesting, and this is just going to be stream of consciousness to some degree, but I want you to feel free to jump in on this chat. It's something that Carol and I have been talking about recently, and that is an interesting concept to me as someone who was in a career for, well, two careers over the course of 40 years. And, you go in trying to learn new things in any situation. And when you are in a career path, and most of you on here will comprehend this, I think, kind of start off in that apprentice mode and you work your way up through a combination of things, continuing to build your knowledge and expertise and on the job training and sometimes formal educational training. And you get to a point where, in many cases, you're in a role where you are perhaps in a leadership role, but one way or another, you end up in roles where people look at you and look at your experience, your years of experience, your levels of expertise, and you're viewed as a subject matter expert. You're viewed as a mentor. You're viewed as someone who whose opinion and insights and input are valued. And what can be interesting about that is that we often go through something that's called imposter syndrome. Carol and I have been talking about this recently. As retirees, you kind of look back over situations where you felt like you were put in a role or you even sought a role and then thought to yourself, maybe you were even hired for a new job or you were given a promotion and a part of you goes, oh, do they think that I know more than I think I know? Am I really an expert here? People are coming to you, they're asking for your opinion. They're asking you to be a presenter. They're asking you to write the paper. They're asking you to lead a team. And we start to wonder if we're actually capable. And I think it's a normal part of insecurities that come up. Yes, imposter syndrome. And it's a normal part of the insecurities that we all face in a variety of areas of our lives. And at the same time, it's interesting because part of what Carol and I were talking, and part of the reason that Carol and I are talking about this is that while we officially retired about a year ago, Carol had just slightly longer than that. I don't hold that over her head that she got to retire before I did. It's true. That we're in this place now in our lives where we retired and you look back on certain things, but in retirement, we're not ready to become stagnant. We're both still looking for opportunities to use past experiences or even develop some new ones and put ourselves out there. I think I've mentioned that I'm in the process of putting together my business plan and my marketing plan to do voiceover work. And you get into this place where you know what you know. And you may even feel pretty good about what you know. You may have a level of confidence, but certain things can pull that down, and a variety of things. And I do want to hear from you about your own experiences on this. Again, I'm kind of going stream of consciousness with my own experience. But one of the things Carol and I talked about is that when you look back or when you're in the midst of certain situations, it's easier sometimes to remember the times that you felt like you failed, or that you were criticized by someone, or something didn't go the way you wanted it to, than to remember all the times that you were successful, to remember all the times that your expertise, your leadership, your experience, your role within that job or whatever it might have been. It doesn't always have to be a paying job. It can be a volunteer situation. It can even be leadership roles within a family or other societal type of situation, right? That we sometimes feel that our past, what we consider to be failures, or our past situations where it didn't go the way we wanted it to, cause us to feel like maybe we're not qualified, maybe we're not good enough to do something. Sometimes we call that, Carol and I have referred to that, and people that we have worked with in the past, as playing the old tapes. It's real easy to play those old tapes and listen to those little voices in your head that cause you to doubt. And I think that this imposter syndrome, and there's some experts, I've read things on this, talk about a little bit of imposter syndrome. That little bit, I mean, that's what we call it, that label. It may or may not actually include really labeling it, but that little bit of self-doubt at times, in the right measure, in the right setting, can actually be an okay thing, because we can tend to take that and use it as a way of self-evaluating positively. Use that as a way of self-evaluating objectively. The problem with it is it's hard to be objective about ourselves. And so sometimes I think the imposter syndrome becomes a thing that causes us to not move forward in certain situations. The fear sets in, and we're afraid to step up. We're afraid to speak out. We get into situations and we start to wonder if what we're leading, or how we're leading, or what we're saying is right. And I can recall several situations that occurred. I've had conversations with colleagues who work in the nonprofit industry. And I worked for several years as a consultant in the nonprofit industry. I ran my own consulting business. And so I would be hired by different nonprofit organizations of various types and sizes to come in and provide counsel to them, advisory counsel or project management on something that they needed additional support or help with. And in many cases, those were situations where okay, I think I'm going to interrupt this because I think that we may be able to get Jim Caruso on here. We're exchanging some things. So bear with me for just a second, and I'm going to see if we can bring him on. And I know our conversation with him is probably going to be a little bit short, but bear with me for 1 second here. We're exchanging messages. The way we do it here, we're going to see if we can get Jim Caruso on. And then we will hopefully come back to this topic of imposter syndrome at a later time. All right, give it a second here and see if Mr. Caruso signs in and can get in the chat here. But anyway, listen, that the other topic is a great topic, and it's one that I do want to visit. I think we're going to come back to it naturally in a few weeks. We have a guest scheduled who, yeah, Shalane, we have a guest scheduled who we're going to talk about failure and why we avoid what we refer to as failure, and why failure really should be something that in many ways we embrace. So I'm just still here waiting to see if Jim's able to get in the chat now, or into the studio now. It's always takes a minute, and we'll see if the technology is now working. The nice thing about Coffee Breaks with Steve is we do things very casually here. We don't stand too much on ceremony or formality, and I believe we're now going to be ready. All right, we're going to make this happen.
I mean,
hey, Jim.
I didn't get the first email.
Right, these things happen. But welcome to Coffee Breaks with Steve. I kind of rushed this, so I didn't get a chance to introduce you. So I'm going to let you tell a little bit about yourself. I'm going to do just a quick thing here, and just say that Jim Caruso is an entertainer, a producer, a host who has appeared on the Broadway stage. He made his Broadway debut alongside Liza Minnelli in the smash hit Liza's at the Palace, singing, dancing, celebrating the music and arrangements of the late great Kay Thompson and the Williams brothers. He has CDs. He has written books. He has co-hosted and hosted. So, and the reason that I asked Jim to be here is that a couple of months ago, Carol and I were in New York, and we took advantage of an opportunity to go to the iconic Birdland Jazz Club on a Monday night to see Jim Caruso's cast party. And we're going to be talking about that today, Jim. But I just rushed through a very quick introduction. What else do you want us to know about you before we get started with this?
I mean, I'm late.
Never.
Anybody out there knows me. They know that I'm always early. No matter what's happening, I'm early. So this has me in a complete tizzy. I'm so sorry to everybody who is tuning in, and to you, my friend. Okay, so enough of that. Cast Party is I've been hosting at Birdland for as of July 20 years, every single Monday, which is nuts. We started it many years ago at another now defunct nightclub, kind of as a fluke. I never expected this to be anything. I just threw a party, and all my friends showed up, and we sang around the piano until the wee hours. And the next day, the nightclub called and said, would you do that every Monday?
Oh my gosh.
Because of course, in New York, Monday is everybody's dark night in the theater. And I said, no, what? Huh? And they said, just try it, see if anybody shows up. So I did, and they did. And it's literally been happening every single Monday for 20 years, except once I was in the hospital. I was really sick about 10 years ago. And when I was on the road with Liza, I missed a few, but I still had somebody guest hosting. So we didn't really miss those. So we've missed in 20 years about 3 or 4 weeks of Cast Party.
And you think about that, 20 years, let's talk about that, weekly over 20 years. I mean, modestly, plus the fact that you've taken Cast Party on the road. It's not just at Birdland in New York. You've taken it to cities all over the United States. You've taken it to London and other places across the ocean. So we're talking about somewhere in the range of 1,000 performances of this.
I know. At some point I should count it, or, I mean, who has time to do that? But, have some of my staff. Oh wait, I don't have staff. But somebody should count it. It obviously changed my life. It gave me such a focus. I was a singer, and kind of singing in nightclubs and occasionally doing theater. But it changed the focus of my life to really be one that celebrates great talent all over the country, all over the world. And I can't tell you what it means to me. What started out as this kind of weird, strange side job has absolutely taken over my life, and I could not be happier or luckier that it happened.
I do want to talk just a little bit about your own background and history. Before this, through this, we talked a little bit about you performing on Broadway with Liza. But you have had interactions with and worked closely with a number of great stars, and that's one of the cool things about the Cast Party, is that on any given Monday night, you've got a combination of people whose names are immediately recognizable, whose talent is sought all over the world, and up and coming newcomers who are just looking for that first opportunity. But your own background is extremely diverse. Jim, talk just a little bit about your own history in entertainment.
Well, I started out doing community theater in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I'm from. Then my family moved to Dallas, where I continued to finally, get my my equity card and my SAG card and all those things that made it feel like I was making headway. Um, and so I did a lot of theater growing up and moved to New York with a vocal trio that I created, or I co-created in Texas, called Wise Guys. And we really started to work a lot. We were a great opening act because we were really upbeat and fun and funny. We were an opening act for Joan Rivers and Cheetah and Liza and, some really terrific people. So that's what got me to New York, singing in nightclubs and singing in that trio. And I always thought if I ever got to Broadway, it would only because somebody said, that guy was interesting, or he was funny, or he was unique. I never thought I'd get it because I was the best singer or certainly the best dancer. But it, in fact, happened exactly like that. Liza became a fan of the vocal trio. When the vocal trio broke up, I started to work for her kind of as an assistant. And at some point, we all decided it would be really fun to celebrate Kay Thompson on a record. Kay was the vocal arranger at MGM in the 40s. She was Liza's godmother, and she had the hippest nightclub act in the world called Kay Thompson and the Williams Brothers. So we learned all these arrangements. We thought it would be fun to do a record. The record idea turned into an international tour because Liza's famous everywhere. And it ended up on Broadway. So indeed, it's exactly what happened. A friend of mine, Liza, decided we'd all go to Broadway.
Wow.
So that's how all that happened. But in between there, I threw this party. We were lucky enough to have some celebrity friends because really, is there any other kind of a friend? And they showed up. They helped us get press, which is so important when you're starting out. And we were in the Times, and we were in, all the daily rags, and we got to be everywhere because of these celebs that would come in and sing with us. So that was the genesis of my brilliant career.
I tell you, it has been amazing and diverse. And by the way, I just put, since I didn't get the opportunity to read the 2-page long bio that I had for you here that gives the entire background.
Please don't.
Oh, I posted it here in the chat so people can, at their leisure, when they're looking for good reading material. I looked actually, Jim, when I was thinking, how am I going to introduce Jim? I thought, I got to cut this down. This was off your website. And I got to cut this down. And then I went, but what would you leave off of here? Because it tells a story. It really tells the story. And it feeds so much into really understanding Cast Party in a lot of ways. You mentioned 20 years. And first of all, congratulations on that. Because you stop and really consider the impact and the continued popularity. But what do you think keeps it fresh?
I think if we had the same performers that we had 20 years ago, I think it might have gotten a little stale. Every week is a new crop. It's a new cast. So I think if you're from out of town and you come once a year, it's a completely different show. I'm in a completely different outfit. Cast Party's like the Ellis Island of show business. At some point, they all come through the door. It's superstars and jazz legends and cabaret divas and up and coming Broadway kids and chorus kids and folk singers and guitar players and saxophonists and
tap dance. The night we were there was a tap dancer,
Luke Hawkins. I mean,
yes.
He's incredible. Well, we've had a bunch of tap dancers, but that night was Luke, and he's incredible. In fact, this coming Monday, he's doing a concert at Birdland with a bevy of Broadway stars that are joining him. But yeah, I think what keeps it fresh is the fact that you never know who's going to come in, because I never know. This is not set up. This is truly an open mic night. They come through the door and they get themselves on the list. I don't say no to anybody.
Yeah.
It can be literally a lady off the street that comes in and sees a sign, or it can be Liza Minnelli, Michael Feinstein,
Yeah.
Ben Vereen, Cheetah
Yeah.
Rivera.
Yeah. It's and it's cool. Now you do, you said it's different every time, but you do have some people who come back through who continue to use the cast party as a way of continuing to exercise their In fact, one of them that was there the night that we were there, Izzy Stein, I think
Yeah.
has been more than once. Izzy's actually going to be on this show in a few
Oh,
weeks.
good. Good.
And talk a little bit about her journey, because it is somewhat representative of the young talent that's really trying to cement their place, whatever that looks like, as you did those years ago, right? We never know
Yeah.
exactly how that's going to come about.
It's interesting.
Go
It's
ahead.
been interesting to see the way some people have used cast party to their advantage. They'll sing their song, and then I see them kind of wander over to the bar area, which is where kind of all of our friends stand and watch, and it's kind of where you really get to meet a bunch of great people in the community. So I see, and plus there have been a lot of romantic hookups at cast party too.
Interesting.
Not for me, unfortunately, but for other people. So it's a great place and a great event to rub elbows with like-minded people who love to perform, people who love to watch performance.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about Birdland, is it has a huge it's a huge tourist attraction.
Mm-hmm.
So we get tons of people every week that come to the door and say, "What's here?" And the people at the front say, "Well, it's an open mic, it's Broadway, it's jazz, it's cabaret, it's pop. Come on in." So we're not always performing to the same crowd every week, and I think that's really important.
And so talk about that, the audience, because one of the things that makes the Birdland setting and cast party special, people can go to the Broadway shows during the rest of the week, and you're sitting out there with 1,000 other people or 2,500 other people, and maybe you'll get close enough to one of the performers in the play afterwards if you crowd your way to. Well, they're not even doing autograph lines now, post COVID.
Right.
But one of the things about Birdland and about your setting there is the intimacy, the proximity of your audience to the stage and to the entertainment that's going on, and you make it very interactive with your audience, which is special too. Has that always been a part of how you've approached it?
Yeah, it really has. When we first started at that other venue, it was much more of a lounge. So it was a lot more casual. There were people kind of flopping on sofas and, up and down and in and out. And so at that point it was a lot more of a casual situation. Now, you come in, you pay your cover and you sit. You certainly don't have to stay for the whole 3 hours. People do come and go.
Wow.
But I want to talk to the audience. I want to know why they're there, what brought them there.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. And sometimes they are as interesting as the performers we have.
Yeah.
We had, oh my gosh, just a few weeks ago, we had a gentleman walked up and said, asked me if I would. He told me that his girlfriend is a French pop superstar. And he told me her name. So I Googled her, and indeed, she's an enormous French pop superstar, like 7 million followers on Instagram. Well, they were sitting in the front row. So I went over and he said, "Don't tell her I told you." So I went over and I said, "I know you. Aren't you a French pop superstar?" And she said, "Why, yes, I am." And they were in the front row. So all night, she didn't want to sing, but all night, we all talked to each other, and they screamed back, and it became like a running gag that this enormous pop superstar who plays the biggest venues in Europe, was sitting in our little room at Birdland that seats 160 and didn't want to sing. She was too nervous to sing.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
But that's what's fun, is you never know
You never know.
who's going to be there, what titan of industry, what famous doctor, Dr. Fauci,
Oh,
hello. You just never know who's going to walk through the doors.
I mean, I walked through the door that night, so just never know.
There you have it. And here we are
And
now.
here we are now. There have there been any? Obviously, this French singer, that had to be kind of a fun surprise and opportunity. What have been the biggest surprises for you in this 20-year journey? The someone who just wowed you, or a famous person that you didn't expect to show up, who walked in the door and said, "I'd like to get on the stage tonight." What have been the biggest wow moments for you?
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine there have been thousands. One night, Betty Comden walked through the door. Betty Comden was the writing partner of Adolph Green. Comden and Green wrote everything from uh, 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 Peter Pan,
Right.
the musical, everything's On the Town,
Right.
just brilliant,
Good.
brilliant, musicals. She said, would it be okay? She was all in black and diamonds. She had been somewhere, I don't know where, but she said, I've always wanted to come in. Would it be okay if I did a number? Well, yeah. So she got up and sang 100 Easy Ways to Lose a Man, which is from On the Town,
Yeah.
word for word. That was thrilling. People were holding their phones, recording, shaking, crying. Carol Channing came in and sang Before the Parade Passes By.
Oh,
Just a weird moment that happened out of nowhere.
yeah.
Natalie Cole sang,
Oh,
who was just so brilliant.
yeah.
And, the thing is, they hear our band, and people that think they'll never perform at an open mic night are like, is that Billy Stritch at the piano who
Right.
plays for Tony Bennett and Liza
Right.
Minnelli? And they're like, okay, we'll be safe. So it's people like that are
Yeah.
famous. It's kids that come in
Yeah.
that just wow us. Somebody that it was kind of late into the evening, and this young lady came in, probably about 19, and she said, I just flew in. I moved here today from I don't know, Ohio. And it's my dream to be on Broadway, and my real dream would be to sing at Cast Party my first night in New York. Now, this was like quarter to 12. We were exhausted. The audience was exhausted. And I was like, oh, God, could you come next week? And she was like, okay. Well, of course, I had to get her up.
Yeah.
So she sang Defying Gravity from
Yeah.
Wicked, of
Yeah.
course. She stopped the show.
Yeah.
Got a standing ovation. I'll never forget it. She had tears streaming down her face. It was like an incredible moment that we're a
Yeah.
part of. We're a part of very happy moments like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of what was evident the night that we were there, and I'm seeing it in your face and hearing it in your voice right now, and I think this is part of what keeps it fresh, Jim, is that you continue to be excited by and intrigued by what happens each week. It's obviously still something fresh and new for you every single week, and that's what really keeps this alive.
Well, that it very well might be. I love it. Every Monday, I feel like it's my birthday. Lay out my clothes. It's like this whole shtick. I look forward to it so much. It's really goofy how much I love it. But we get to meet people from all over the world doing what they love to do, and there's so much happiness in the air on Monday nights. It's not like a job. It's something else. It's like community service for me. I feel very. I'm such a fan of great talent, and of people that are good at what they do.
Yeah.
And so people show us. They show themselves to us by doing what they love to do on stage, and it's how they communicate. And I think that is a thrilling thing to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Billy Stritch and the band, and that was the other thing that truly impressed us. I'm a fan of jazz as well, and just a good jazz ensemble, a good jazz band. But one of the things that is really cool about it is an open mic night, which means that your band doesn't know who's going to be coming and what they're going to be singing. Sometimes they've been given a chart or sheet music ahead of time. Sometimes it happens when the artist walks up on stage, and sometimes they just say, I'm going to be singing such and such in B flat or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And you've got this, I don't know, it has to be one of the most talented, amazing jazz bands in the world, because they just pick up on it and go with it. And I mean, just listening to them on their own during the kind of intro time, but watching and listening to them and watching how they relate to each other during the performances is as much a part of the fun and the awe-inspiring element of Cast Party as the rest of it is. And just curious about how you were able to bring that band together.
Well, Billy Stritch has been my best friend for, I don't know, 40 years,
Wow.
something hideous like that. We finish each other's sentences. We have performed together. We also perform at Bemelman's Bar at the Carlisle Hotel every Sunday. Every birthday, every holiday, we are really very, very like brothers, really.
Yeah.
And Steve Doyle on bass
Yeah.
was at the very first Cast Party. I couldn't even afford a bass player.
Wow.
And it worked out. And he's still with us.
Yeah.
That's crazy 20 years later. And Daniel Glass has been with us maybe a decade. They all are brilliant musicians, great friends, real professionals. They're there on time every single week. I mean, musicians get a bad rap sometimes for having issues and not being easy to work with, or not being these guys are just as pro as you can be. They also play for some of the greatest performers in the world. Yes, they are jazz musicians, but they can play anything.
Yeah.
You bring in something from Godspell, there you have it. You bring in an American standard, they got it. Folk, pop, rock, gospel. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know what that gene is. I certainly don't have it, but they do. And the Cast Party Symphony Orchestra is talented in the most kind of in the biggest variety of ways to me, and they're nice.
Somebody just asked in the chat if Billy Stritch was related to Elaine Stritch.
No, but we all knew Elaine.
Yeah.
She had come to Cast Party and seen us at Bemelman's and stuff. When she died, Billy got more sympathy notes than when his own family has passed away. People really think that they're related. So I think at this point he just says, yes, she was my aunt or something.
Just might as well play with it.
I know. No, she was not.
When you take Cast Party on the road and you're in different cities, and I'm thinking particularly if you get across the pond to places like London, do you find that it still comes across the same way? Does it still work the same way? And people are kind of artists are looking forward to getting in the door and being able to perform. The audience reacts much the same way. Is it different anywhere?
That's been a huge surprise, because those of us in New York and LA and, the showbiz capitals, Vegas, think that all the really good talent has chosen to live among us. And isn't that grand? Well, guess what? We just did Cast Party in Orlando. The talent was off the charts. Now, of course, there's Disney World there, so there's a lot of talent for that. So you go, okay. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Austin. I'm trying to think of the smaller communities. It's always stunning. Who shows up. They find us or we find them and I invite them. But, there's always the lady who does the leads in the community theater, who's
Yeah.
swell. There's always the great jazz guitar player that has just decided to live in Pittsburgh because he likes Pittsburgh, has family there, doesn't care to move somewhere else. And yes, London. Well, there's London has a huge talent pool, certainly, and the people from the West End found us,
Oh,
and
yeah.
thank God, Rachel Tucker, huge West
Yeah.
End superstars,
Yeah.
like Rachel, joined us, and so it's always a thrill uh, to to meet the celebrity performers of each city, but also meet some of the up and comers.
That's great. Anything, any final thoughts that you have or things that you would like our viewers to know about Cast Party? And I'm going to be posting information about Cast Party, how they can find it when they're in New York, information about you on my pages. And I'm going to strongly encourage anybody who goes to New York for any reason. Yeah, great. Go to see the Broadway shows, find your favorite shows. The other thing about going to Cast Party is you can see Cast Party for a fraction of what it costs you to go to a Broadway show. So, but any final thoughts that you have for us, Jim?
Just follow us
Yeah.
on Instagram. That's Jim Caruso's Cast Party. We're on Facebook. We have some fun things coming up. We're going to be live streaming on Monday, February 6th. That's a very special birthday show for me. And I know the talent's going to be fantastic. And you can go to birdlandjazz.com.
Yeah.
Celebrate this great talent that we have. Certainly the famous people, of course, we love the famous people, but the up and comers, the people that are putting themselves on the line, that's always thrilling. And I mean, artists are responsible for the most pleasure we can get, and celebrate those people with us.
I love that. Jim Caruso, I want to say thank you. Late is never an issue here. Coffee Breaks with Steve. We're all just sitting around our virtual coffee table having a good morning. That's right. So, hey, if you've got a couple of minutes to hang out when I put you back in the green room, I'd like to chat with you about a couple of things when we get off the air. If not, I'll catch up with you. But I just want to say thank you again for being here. I want to say thank you so much for what you were doing every Monday night and the times in between to keep the entertainment industry alive and active and kicking and moving forward and bringing those next generations of people to the forefront in New York and elsewhere, because that's what's going to make those up and comers are going to be the next stars, and then they're going to be helping you promote the next group of up and comers. So thank you very much, my friend.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
All right. All right. Hey, there is no such thing as late here. We just love having people here. I want to tell you a couple of things that are going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks on Coffee Breaks with Steve. First of all, next week, we've got a very, very interesting show. A couple, Brandon and Whitney K. Wood, professional filmmakers, but this is their first feature-length documentary they're putting together, and it comes from their own experience, their own family situation, but it's called To Die For. They're finishing up production on this documentary that's about the impact and the issues that synthetic dyes in our food and other places, but primarily in what we consume, can have on our health and our well-being physically and emotionally. That's going to be a very interesting show. It sounds kind of heavy. I don't think it's going to be heavy. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then in a couple of weeks, we've got another New Yorker who's going to be with us, Jonathan Siegel, who has been on the show before. Jonathan and his wife, Carol, were on here a few months ago to talk about life in New York. Jonathan is a singer, a piano player, a songwriter, and he recently finished writing a musical that he's been working on for a while called Space Vacation the Musical, and he's now trying to get out to the public and see if he can find performance venues for that. So we're going to be talking to Jonathan about Space Vacation, probably hear some music from that, but it's a family-based musical that I think you're going to enjoy. Jonathan's always fun to talk to. So I think you're going to enjoy that. If you have ideas about topics or guests that you would like to see us bring onto Coffee Breaks with Steve, you can email me at cbwsteve@comcast.net. Share your ideas. We get those all the time, and look at those topics as ways to bring what you want to the table. Recommend your guests, especially if it's someone that you know, someone you can make an introduction to. That always helps. But just invite you to do that and to help us keep the show going. And finally, I do want to mention a reminder to you that episodes of Coffee Breaks with Steve are available, not live, but they're available after the fact on Spotify. It's both an audio and video podcast there. And then on Apple and Google Podcasts, the audio version of the show is available after the fact. So you can go on there and you can refer your friends there. They can also come back into Facebook or to YouTube and see the show as it was presented. They can see the comments and they can continue to make comments in the chat. So you can feel free. And if you're joining later on and watching this recorded on those platforms, be part of the conversation. That's what it is really all about. All right. Hey, this has been a fun show today. And once again, want to say thank you to Jim Caruso for being here, for being part of the conversation, for sharing so much great information. As I mentioned, I will be putting on the Coffee Breaks with Steve Facebook page information about Jim Caruso's cast party, how you can find out more about it, and please, 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 if you are planning to go to New York, make this a part of your adventure there. If you're not planning on going to New York, plan to go there, just if nothing else, to go to Birdland and see Jim Caruso's cast party. All right, listen, I'm going to let you go now. I just want to once again say thank you for being a part of the conversation, and just remind you, as I do every single week, you know, we all have a voice. We all have things that are important to us. Find a way to make a difference in your world this week. God bless you. Have a great week.